G'day guys, Disney Dave coming at you once again from Down Under with another Blu-ray collection video. Yes, that's right, just as you thought I had rounded out my complete Blu-ray collection, I keep coming back with more videos. I suppose we're now rounding out to the point where we're taking a look at some more specialty sections of my collection now. Today we are taking a look at the films in my collection that I consider to be under the banner of classic cinema. I'm an enormous lover of classic cinema. It has made up quite a huge portion of my film viewing past. But I love classic cinema and I just love everything about it. The glamour, the beauty, the writing and the filmmaking. I think it's just some of the most perfect filmmaking and perfect writing just ever produced on screen. So today we are going to go through my collection of classic cinema, which I consider to span the years early 1900s, 1910s to about the end of the 1970s, maybe just peeking into the 1980s depending on the film. So what are we waiting for? There is a whole ton of movies to get into in this video, so let's cue the opening sequence. Alright, so we're going to get straight into this. The ordering of my classic movies is a little bit more sporadic than anything else. Usually anything else is just sort of straight out alphabetical. Mine is mostly alphabetical, but I've sort of split it into sections, into genres. It makes more sense to split classic cinema up into genres. Like if I want to just watch a Western film, I can go to the Western section. If I want to watch a film noir, I go to the film noir section. If I want to watch a musical, you know, it sort of makes more sense, I feel, to split classic cinema up into genres. So that's exactly what we're going to do, and we're going to start off this video with the movies that I have cut into my collection that fit between the 1970s and the 1980s. I feel like that's sort of the back end of classic cinema. It's not so much golden cinema, but it is still classic cinema. Okay, I gotta stop talking because there's honestly so much to get through, so let's get started. 3 Days of the Condor. This is absolutely fantastic. I love just about almost anything Robert Redford is in. 2001: A Space Odyssey. Never have put myself through this entire movie, honestly. When it comes to pretentious cinema, I can't do it. I'm not that kind of film lover. And this just feels like the king of all pretension. All the President's Man, yet another great Robert Redford film. Annie Hall. I just couldn't get my head around this. I love Woody Allen's more recent movies, but most of his older stuff, I just can't do it. I don't know. Assault on Precinct 13. Barry Lyndon. Being There. This is absolutely spectacular. You have to see this movie. Peter Sellers is incredible in this film. Watch it. Watch it. Any way you can. Seek it out. Watch this. Blazing Saddles. Hilarious. Blue Thunder. Bullet. Steve McQueen movies, sort of give and take. I'm more of a Paul Newman guy. Capricorn 1. Convoy. The Deep. Doctor Strangelove. There's one Stanley Kubrick movie I can get behind, and I do love The Shining, but this is awesome, and Peter Sellers again, fantastic. Dracula. Driver. Easy Rider. Awesome. Escape from Alcatraz. The Final Countdown. This is one awesome, sort of almost unknown, underrated classic movie, I think from 1980, so it just sort of slips into classics for me, really only because Kirk Douglas is in this. He is awesome in this. Martin Sheen, I think? Yeah, Martin Sheen's in this too. This is really fun, sort of sci-fi war movie. It's awesome. Check it out. The French Connection and The French Connection 2 Double Pack. The Gauntlet. Get Carter. The Graduate. The Great Gatsby. Now, you all know my love of The Great Gatsby. This is actually quite a good version of it. Again, Robert Redford is in this. It's closer to the book than the Baz Luhrmann movie because it's not so modernized. If you're interested in that, check it out. Harold and Maude. The Italian Job. Anything with Michael Caine, really. Come on. Jaws 2, Jaws 3, Jaws 4, The Revenge. Well, talking about anything with Michael Caine, well, this one actually does have Michael Caine and is, among film lovers, sort of considered Michael Caine's worst movie ever. I think I read an interview with him where he said he's never even watched the movie, and he knew the movie was bad, and he only did it because he just wanted to take a paycheck home to feed his family. And I think that's awesome. I admire a man who can do that, especially a star of his caliber. Not everything has to be great, just as long as you're putting money on the table. I think that's fantastic. You're probably wondering, where's Jaws 1? I'll get to that very, very soon. Trust me. Kramer versus Kramer. This is great too. Last Tango in Paris. creepy. Le Mans, Marathon Man, Midnight Cowboy, The Natural, another just awesome Robert Redford movie. This guy, he can do no wrong. North Sea Hijack, The Party, Rollerball, Rosemary's Baby, See No Evil, Hear No Evil. The movies they did together are fantastic. We'll get to another one in a moment, but See No Evil, Hear No Evil, this is probably my favourite one of the pair. Slapshot, Smokey and the Bandit, this is another guilty pleasure, great film. Stir Crazy, The Taking of Pelham 1, 2, 3, Thief, this is only a recent purchase, but this looks great too. The Thomas Crown Affair, The Toy, Westworld, Yes Kids, it was a movie before it was a series, this is pretty cool. And Young Frankenstein. Okay, that brings us to the end of the 1970s to our 1980s classic films. But for now, we're going to move along and we're going to tackle a selection of classic golden cinema. These are the ones that I sort of couldn't really classify. There's some dramas in here, there's some comedies, there's a few other little bits and pieces. Sort of ones that I found a little bit harder to classify. So let's take a look at these. All About Eve. An Affair to Remember. This is great. I love Cary Grant in just about anything. The Apartment, a great classic comedy. The Best Years of Our Lives. Black Narcissus. Bonnie and Clyde. The Black Swan. Call of the Wild. Clark Gable is another one that's just cool. Cat on a Hot Tin Roof. Cavalcade. This is great. This is a very early Academy Award winner. Cool Hand Luke. This is one of the coolest movies ever made. Seriously, check this out. Paul Newman at his absolute best. The Devil and Miss Jones. Father Goose, Father of the Bride. Yes, this is the original Father of the Bride, which Disney later remade with Steve Martin. This is quite good too. Gentleman's Agreement, Grand Hotel. This is fantastic. I mean, this is the height of classic cinema. This was sort of like maybe, I can't believe I'm actually going to go there, but something like the New Year's Day of the time. But we can compare it to that because this is a movie where they just threw in so many amazing big superstars to be in this one film, and it was so rare to see this many like A-list stars in one movie. Great Expectations, In the Heat of the Night, Sidney Poitier. Oh, his movies are great. The Honey Pot, How Green Was My Valley, Imitation of Life, Indiscreet, and The Jazz Singer. This is the very first movie ever released with sound. Absolutely fantastic. Lost Horizon. This is a brilliant Frank Capra movie. This is coming out as part of the Capra collection in those amazing digibooks. You'll see some of them very soon. I'm excited to get my hands on it again because this is fantastic. I love Frank Capra. I love him. Operation Petticoat. The Red Shoes. The Vivien Leigh collection. This has got a bunch of classic English films that she made at the start of her career. Fire Over England, Storm in a Teacup, Dark Journey, and St. Martin's Lane. Marty. Fritz Lang's Metropolis. Mr. Peabody and the Mermaid. A really great classic fantasy movie. Paris Blues. The Picture of Dorian Gray. Suddenly, Last Summer. Sunset Boulevard, one of the all-time classics. The Thief of Baghdad. This is a sort of a really early Aladdin movie. Who's Afraid of Virginia Woolf? Wings. This is a great silent movie which is actually the very first movie to ever win the Best Picture Academy Award. Okay, now let's get into the genres, and we're going to start with a very small section here, which is some classic sci-fi horror sort of stuff. Barbarella. This is a bit of fun. The Blob. This includes both the 1950s and 1980s versions of the movie. This was a limited edition set. Actually, it has a reversible cover. I wound up with edition 1111 of 2300. You can still get your hands on that here in Australia, but there's one thing that I do have to tell you. If you actually do have a copy of this movie, there was some sort of error on disc 1. I can't exactly remember what the error was, but they started a replacement program. So if you have this and you haven't heard about the replacement program, contact Umbrella and they will send you a replacement. Forbidden Planet. It came from outer space in 2D and 3D. It's really funny to watch something like this in 3D. It's a lot of fun. The Omega Man. This is awesome too. Charlton Heston. Now we're going to take a look at some classic musicals. This is only a small pile, but I do have a lot more classic musicals which you'll see in another video. An American in Paris. I absolutely adore Gene Kelly, as I've said in previous videos. He is just one of the greats. He could do it all. He could act, he could sing, he could dance. You know, actors were not just an actor back then. They were like multi-talented performers. I think that is just one of the things that I love about classic cinema. Bells Are Ringing. This is a recent addition to the collection. Dean Martin, I think, is just so cool. I love his music. I love his movies. I'm looking forward to checking this one out. Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. Easter Parade. Fred Astaire is another one of those guys that just just had it all. And Judy Garland, of course, I absolutely adore Judy. Wizard of Oz is my favorite movie, so I have a bit of a soft spot for Judy. Follow That Dream, one of Elvis's earliest films. Jailhouse Rock, this is probably my favorite Elvis film of them all. Viva Las Vegas, this one's great too. I have every single one of Elvis's movies, but they're the only 3 I actually have on Blu-ray. I think they're the only 3 they actually released on Blu-ray. All the rest are on DVD. I might get into my DVD collection at some point down the line. Gigi, Ocean's 11, Sinatra, Dean Martin, Sammy Davis Jr., and a couple of other guys that no one ever remembers. The Rat Pack, absolutely fantastic. This movie is so much fun. I love it. I love this cover too. It's nice and shiny. Ooh. Oliver, Yankee Doodle Dandy, Young at Heart, Frank Sinatra. Oh, I put Frank Sinatra in the same tier as Dean Martin, of course. I love him, love him, love him. Once again, more musicals coming up very soon, but for now, let us get into a couple of epics. Cleopatra. This is one of the very earliest box office bombs. They spent so much money on this. It was the most expensive movie ever made at that point, and it was a critical and commercial failure. Even I was just so bored watching this movie. I usually love a good 4-hour epic. I love just sitting down on Sunday afternoon and watching an epic, but this I just couldn't get into. It bored me to tears. But the sets and the costumes and everything in this are spectacular, and the amount of money spent on this really shows. I think for that, it's worth watching, but prepare to be bored. El Cid, Charlton Heston, Sophia Loren. Such an odd pairing, but it kind of works. This is good. Lawrence of Arabia, I adore this movie. It's fantastic. The Fall of the Roman Empire. Samson and Delilah, Taras Bulba, and the 10 Commandments. I mean, this is one, it's so good. It's so good. Again, more classic epics coming up in another video. I know there's a couple of really big epics that I haven't touched on just here, but I will touch on them very soon. These next ones were a little bit harder to classify. I started out by bunching these up as sort of movies based on Shakespeare's works, but then I found a couple of other movies that sort of fit in with them as well, even though they weren't based on Shakespearean plays. So I've classified them as medieval. I think I should probably classify them as Shakespearean, even though they're not. The Black Shield of Falworth, Tony Curtis and Janet Leigh, of course, off-screen lovers as well. This is quite fun. Camelot, Hamlet. This is the late 1940s version with Laurence Olivier. It's spectacular. No one could perform Shakespeare like this guy, except maybe Kenneth Branagh, but Laurence Olivier, spectacular in this. Henry V, another one of those Laurence Olivier Shakespearean classics. This one's great too. A Man for All Seasons. Prince Valiant, and of course Romeo and Juliet. Now let's take a look at some Aussie classics. These are mostly exploitation movies, but they're a bit of fun. Jeddah, The Punisher. Yes, this is based on the Marvel The Punisher, and it has Dolph Lundgren in it. Australian, you're thinking? Yes, this was an Australian production made here in Australia, and yes, it's considered an Australian exploitation classic. Razorback, one of the classic Aussie cult movies. This is just so bad that it's good. Road Games, another one of those Aussie exploitation classic that stars 2 international stars. Wake in Fright. Okay, now we get to my favourite genres of classic cinema. And one of my all-time favourites is, of course, film noir, the classic gangster film. There's some great titles here. Let's have a look. Arc of Triumph, The Big Combo, Brief Encounter, Cape Fear, the original. This is just as good as the Scorsese remake. It's like the rare example of a remake being as good as the original film. Court, Chinatown. I know it's not really a classic film noir, it's more of an homage to the classic film noirs, but I like to keep this with my film noirs. And how cool is that slipcover? I don't think you can get this one anymore. City That Never Sleeps, Force of Evil, Kiss Tomorrow Goodbye, James Cagney, what a legend. Laura, Murder My Sweet, On Dangerous Ground, Out of the Past. This one is so cool. Possessed, The Postman Always Rings Twice. This one is also incredible. The Third Man, Orson Welles at his finest. Violent Saturday, Witness for the Prosecution. Now, you probably noticed that there's one big name of classic film noir cinema that didn't actually pop up in that pile. Well, that's because I love this guy so much. He is my favourite actor of all time. I had to give him his own section. He did great film noirs, he did great action movies, great adventure movies, great western movies, some great war movies. He did everything, but I just felt like I couldn't mix all his movies up because they almost feel like they're in a genre of themselves. We are, of course, talking about the great Humphrey Bogart. Let's check out his films that are in my collection. The Big Sleep, Casablanca, one of my favourite movies of all time. The Caine Mutiny, and it's a cool little slipcover. Dark Passage, The Enforcer, Key Largo, The Maltese Falcon, Passage to Marseille, great little war film. I'm sure I've spoken about this before. The studio sort of tried to emulate the success of Casablanca, and they threw together something like 4 or 5 of the original cast of Casablanca back to do this movie. They even got the same director back, of course, Michael Curtiz. The storyline and some of the costumes are even quite eerily similar to Casablanca. They really tried to make this sort of an unofficial sequel to Casablanca. I like to think of it as a spiritual sequel because it's very similar to Casablanca. It's not as good, but it's a good one to check out. To Have and Have Not, this and The Big Sleep are my 2 favourite Bogart-Bacall films. They of course did 4 together, they're all mixed in here. And Treasure of the Sierra Madre. Now this of course leads us into the great genre that is the Western. A Man Called Horse, The Big Country, Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid. This is fantastic. Along with Cool Hand Luke, my favourite Paul Newman movie, and of course some extra Robert Redford thrown in for good measure. This is awesome. Awesome. High Noon, this is like the pinnacle of classic westerns. Gary Cooper riding off into the sunset, awesome. And of course Grace Kelly, oh, so good. High Plains Drifter, Jesse James, this one's fantastic as well. King and 4 Queens, a great Clark Gable western. Little Big Man, The Magnificent Seven collection. This has Magnificent Seven, The Return of the Magnificent Seven, Guns of the Magnificent Seven, and Magnificent Seven Ride. Gunfight at the OK Corral. This is so cool. Once Upon a Time in the West. Pale Rider. Run for Cover. Shane, another one that sits at the top of the top. And The Wild Bunch. Once again, you're sitting there thinking you have left off the one mega superstar of the Western film. But don't worry, this is a man who, just like Humphrey Bogart, deserves his own genre of film. That is, of course, the great John Wayne. Big Jake. Circus World. The Cowboys. El Dorado. Hatari. Hondo. How the West Was Won. This is the one great sort of epic western. I think John Wayne only had a very small part in this, but this is another one of those huge ensemble movies. This is sort of like the Grand Hotel of the western. This could have easily been called like Grand Canyon or something like that. The Man Who Shot Liberty Valance. This is my favourite John Wayne movie and one of my favourite James Stewart movies. James Stewart again is another one who I absolutely love. I love all of his movies. He's great. McClintock. I don't think I've checked this one out yet, but it's one of those rare John Wayne comedies. He did a couple of just really weird oddball comedies, but I want to check that one out. North to Alaska. This is actually the other John Wayne comedy that I was thinking about. This is great. Rio Bravo. Rio Lobo. The Searchers. Fantastic John Ford Western. Oh. True Grit. Okay, now this is the greatest John Wayne movie. This is so good. And Rooster Cogburn, which is the little-known sequel to True Grit, which has John Wayne and Katharine Hepburn in it. It's alright. The War Wagon, John Wayne and Kirk Douglas. Fantastic. Now let's take the cowboy hat off because these next 2 John Wayne movies aren't exactly westerns. That's right, John Wayne was also a big star of war films. So let's take a look at The Green Berets and The Longest Day. Now that's a nice good segue into our next section, which is war films. 55 Days at Peking, Charlton Heston and Ava Gardner. Assault on a Queen, one of those odd action movies that Frank Sinatra did. He really wanted the studios to turn him into an action star. Never quite took off. He did quite a number of movies like this, but he was never quite as big of an action star as he was as, say, a swing star. Battle of the Bulge, Bridge on the River Kwai. This one is getting a 4K treatment very soon. Looking forward to that. War Film Pack, The Great Escape, A Bridge Too Far, and The Battle of Britain. The Dam Busters. This is definitely worth a watch if you're a Star Wars fan. This is about a wing commander squadron in World War II, and there are some amazing and at the time groundbreaking sequences where there's dogfights, where they're flying these planes through trenches, and George Lucas took the exact same camera movements and camera framing and everything from this movie and used that in the final sequence of A New Hope when they're flying through the trenches of the Death Star. So if you're a huge Star Wars fan, it's definitely worthwhile taking a look at this movie just to see where Lucas's influences came from. Star Wars was just a great love letter of all these movies that George Lucas was inspired by as a kid and as a filmmaker. This one's great. The Diary of Anne Frank. The Dirty Dozen. This one is a lot of fun. I loved it. The Eagle Has Landed. Failsafe. From Here to Eternity. This is the one where Frank Sinatra really tried to push the studio into making him an action star. And he lobbied very, very hard for an Academy Award, which he, of course, did win. There are rumors that allegedly Sinatra used his ties to the mob to rig the results at the Academy Award to win him the Academy Award for this. I'm not saying it's true, but that's one of those rumors that's been floating around out there for years. But his performance in this was actually very, very, very good. But one always wonders. Guns of the Navarone, Kelly's Heroes, MacArthur, Mrs. Miniver, On the Beach. I've spoken about my admiration for this film many occasions. Of course, Gregory Peck, Ava Gardner, fantastic movie. But this is the rare case where classic Hollywood came to Australia. They filmed this one in Melbourne, and it's so weird watching a classic Hollywood movie that's been filmed in my hometown. Like, there's shots down through the streets of Melbourne City, and a huge portion of this movie was actually shot where I work. It was so weird watching this and going, hang on, that's where I work. Starlag 17, and Where Eagles Dare. Now let's take a look at another couple of those larger-than-life personalities from classic cinema that I believe deserve their own genres. And of course, let's start with one of my all-time favourites, Mrs. Audrey Hepburn. And of course, we start with Breakfast at Tiffany's, which is my favourite Hepburn movie. This is fantastic. It's so good. Please watch it if you haven't. Charade, Audrey Hepburn, Cary Grant. Does it get better than that? Funny Face, Audrey Hepburn and Fred Astaire in one of his later roles. This is really, really good. My Fair Lady, the 50th anniversary edition, a nice slipcover. It's always nice when they do actually release a slipcover here in Australia. The original release of My Fair Lady on Blu-ray. The video transfer on this is absolutely terrible, which is why I, of course, had to upgrade to the new 50th anniversary one. But I think I've hung on to this one because there's an audio commentary on this that's not on the new set for some reason. Sabrina! Hang on a minute, that's a Humphrey Bogart movie. But I do consider this more of an Audrey Hepburn than a Bogey movie. But there you go, Sabrina, this is fantastic as well. Wait Until Dark. War and Peace. That's all the Audrey movies. Sadly, they still haven't put out Paris When It Sizzles or Roman Holiday on Blu-ray. Don't know why. When are they going to do that? I don't know. Okay, next up, we are going to take a look at one of the greatest filmmakers who have ever lived. One of my favourite filmmakers of classic cinema. It is, of course, the master of suspense himself, Alfred Hitchcock. Of course, we'll start with this one. It's not a classic movie. I just had to put it with my Hitchcock films. To Catch a Thief, Cary Grant and Grace Kelly. Fantastic movie. Cary Grant was really best when he was working on a Hitchcock film. He delivered some fantastic performances. Dial M for Murder in 3D, and likewise, Grace Kelly was just spectacular in Hitchcock's movies as well. I Confess. North by Northwest, another great Cary Grant Hitchcock film. Psycho. This is a pretty cool addition. Now, I understand these aren't Hitchcock movies, but I like to pair them up with Hitchcock Psycho. Psycho 2, Psycho 3, and Psycho 4. And the pathetic, awful remake of Psycho. What was the point of this movie? This was just a remake, shot for shot, of the original Hitchcock movie. And Vince Vaughn as Norman Bates? Talk about miscasting. Back to the Hitchcock films. Strangers on a Train and Suspicion. Now, you would have noticed I have left off at least 13 or 14 of Hitchcock's most classic movies. Yes, I have them, and yes, you will see them in a future video. Okay, now we've got a couple of great movies from African-American cinema. Of course, Blaxploitation. Let's take a look at these. Shaft. Sheba Baby. Black Mama, White Mama. Coffee. Foxy Brown. Of course, these Pam Grier movies are just so much fun. They are awesome. And of course, the complete collection of Blackula, which includes Blackula and Scream, Blackula Scream. So much fun. Okay, now we've got to the portion of the collection which sort of gave me an early life crisis. It pained me. Do I split these ones up into other genres or do I keep them all together? I decided in the end to keep them all together. These are movies that are part of boutique lines, as they're called, sort of collection. They're the ones that have the numbers on the spine. I thought I'll keep them all together because they look cool together. There's not much to say about these movies other than these are fantastic movies. The genres are all over the place. You'll see a couple of John Wayne movies in here, Humphrey Bogart movies, Audrey Hepburn movies in here as well. They're just all jumbled up, but they're in their little collections. I'm not going to say much about these ones because they're all fantastic. First up, let's start with an Australian boutique collection, which is the Hollywood Gold series. Night of the Hunter, Hang 'em High, Exodus, Man of the West, Bandolero, James Stewart, Dean Martin, what a cool pairing. Lifeboat, one of Hitchcock's early movies, really good too. The Devil's Brigade, Boston Strangler, Dr. Dolittle, The Unforgiven, Midnight Lace, Journey to the Center of the Earth, 12 Angry Men, one of the greatest movies ever made. Inherit the Wind, Judgment at Nuremberg, Moby Dick, Thunderbolt and Lightfoot, and The Hindenburg. Now let's take a look at some Criterion collections. These are all from the UK collection. I haven't imported any of the American ones. It Happened One Night. Again, Frank Capra movies are fantastic, and this is so good. I only watched this recently and I've just fallen in love with it. One of my top movies of all time. Great drama, romance, comedy. Clark Gable, Claudette Colbert. Incredible, incredible. Please watch this movie, so good. Gilda, Only Angels Have Wings. In a Lonely Place. This is up there with my favorite Bogart movies of all time. Please go and see this. Underrated, underappreciated film noir classic. In a Lonely Place, so good. Here Comes Mr. Jordan. The In-Laws. Cat People. His Girl Friday. Mildred Pierce. Now let's take a look at some awesome titles from my favorite boutique label of them all. This one truly trumps and rivals the Criterion collection. It is, of course, Eureka's Masters of Cinema line. I love these. Sunrise. M. Cleopatra. The Lost Weekend. The Blue Angel. This has the American and German versions of the film. The Birth of a Nation. The Tarnished Angels. Red River. Great John Wayne Western. Nosferatu. Ace in the Hole. Too Late Blues. Boomerang. The Cabinet of Dr. Caligari. The Thief of Baghdad. Intolerance. Two for the Road, another great Hepburn film. Wild River. Pickup on South Street. 40 Guns. The Day of the Outlaw. The Quiet Man, another classic John Wayne Western. The Flight of the Phoenix, James Stewart classic. The Man from Laramie, another James Stewart classic. Two Rode Together, another James Stewart classic. And Covergirl, Gene Kelly at his finest once again. Rita Hayworth is great in this too. And of course I have Eureka's Buster Keaton short film collection box set here. I have got their Buster Keaton 3-movie collection on pre-order, which I cannot wait for. This is fantastic. And of course the newest boutique label on the UK market at the moment is from Powerhouse Films. It is the Indicator series. These guys are rivaling Eureka Masters of Cinema as well. Fantastic little sets. These are Guess Who's Coming to Dinner, To Sir with Love, the two great Sidney Poitier classics. Lady from Shanghai, a favourite film noir of mine. The Last Detail, one of Jack Nicholson's first and finest films. Experiment in Terror. The Big Heat, one of those seminal film noir classics. The Wild One, Marlon Brando. I've also got The Chase, which is another Marlon Brando film from this collection on the way in the post. Very excited for that one. And I have one lone BFI collection, The Phantom of the Opera. Okay, we got to the real pointy end of the video. We're just about to round out the collection. Now, these ones aren't boutique labels per se, and they're not really box sets. They sort of sit between. Consider these sort of more premium collection titles. These don't really fit in a box set video, so I think I'll just chuck them at the end of this video. We're going to whiz through these again. We've got a couple of the Warner Brothers Digibook collection titles, which are The Hustler, another great Paul Newman film, Streetcar Named Desire, Mutiny on the Bounty, and Dr. Zhivago. Now, this was one of my favourite collections of all time that they ever produced. This was Universal's 100th Anniversary Collector's Edition titles right here. Some great titles they released in this collection. I really wish they could have done more. The Sting, again, Robert Redford, Paul Newman paired up together. Great film. To Kill a Mockingbird, All Quiet on the Western Front, Buck Private, fantastic. Spartacus, this was one that was released in Australia only. They didn't release this one in America for some reason. I think maybe even in the UK they released this one, but this one and Jaws, only two they released in this collection here in Australia. That and I think Atonement as well, like a more newer film. Don't know why they released that. So there is Jaws. I said earlier we'd have a look at Jaws. Oh, fantastic. Look at that. That one was released in the States. Pillow Talk, Rock Hudson and Doris Day. E.T. This one I think was a Best Buy exclusive, and I picked this up when I was actually in the States. So I'm waiting on the 4K edition to arrive in my lap as we speak. And Out of Africa. This is the rare Robert Redford movie that I did not enjoy. I found this boring and tedious and just not a huge Meryl Streep fan either, so apologies. This is one from the Universal 100th Anniversary Collection, but they didn't do this in the Digibook, just in a slipcover here. Harvey. Absolutely love this movie. James Stewart, again, one of his greatest. Love it. We've got a couple of 20th Century Fox steelbooks here. The Fly. This is pretty cool. And the original, The Poseidon Adventure. Less cool steelbook, but I think I got them both on Zavvi really cheap, like 2 for $10 or something like that. We got the 3 previously released titles here from the Frank Capra collection. Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, Mr. Deeds Goes to Town, and You Can't Take It With You. Of course, Lost Horizon is coming out in this collection at the end of the year. I'll be getting my hands on that too. Now, Warner Brothers started this interesting collection and then stopped after 2 titles. We've of course got Double Indemnity and Touch of Evil. Both of these came with like sort of bits of memorabilia, lobby cards, like a booklet, like a little annotated script of the film or something like that. I don't know why they didn't continue that series, because they were great. I was really hoping for a few more, but alas, yeah, they didn't. Now we have a couple of titles from the HMV Premium Collection that I picked up while I was over in the UK earlier in the year. King Kong, The Adventures of Robin Hood, H.G. Wells' The Time Machine, and Robert Redford and Jeremiah Johnson. I haven't watched this one yet, but I'm looking forward to that. I have got the Ray Harryhausen collection that was released in Australia. Indicator, Powerhouse have just released a couple of massive box sets of Harryhausen films with these in it. I really wish I'd waited, but I have that anyway. And to go with that, I have got 1 Million Years BC in this cool slipcover from the UK. Love that. And to round this out, we're going to take a look at a premium collection from here in Australia, which is Shock's Cinema Cult Collection, Paths of Glory, The Killing, The Fury, Pretty Poison, The Day of the Jackal, and Crisscross. Whew. Okay, that is a lot of movies, and that was a longer video than I really was expecting to do for the classic. But that really gets most of my Blu-ray collection sort of out of the way. There's a few more little bits and pieces to upload over the next couple of weeks, but that sort of gets the main portion of my Blu-ray collection out of the way. Of course, though, this is not all of my classic movies. I have one more classic movies Blu-ray collection video to upload, which will be going up again next week. I'm sure you've been watching this and going, hang on, where's this? Where's this? Where's this? I do have most of the great classic movies, but a lot of them will be featured next week when we wrap up my obsession with classic cinema, where we take a look at the classic cinema box sets that I have in my collection. It's a very exciting video coming up next week. For now, I'm out of breath, my voice hurts, I've been doing this for a couple of hours, even though this video is only like maybe 30-40 minutes long. I've been at this for a very long time. If you're a first-time viewer of my channel and you have enjoyed today's video and you'd like to see more of my Blu-ray collection, I've uploaded a ton of other Blu-ray collection videos. After the jump, I'm going to put a bunch of hyperlinks for those videos so you can check them out. And also after the jump, there's going to be a little button where you can hit subscribe. So please do that and give me some support and keep following me as I continue with my Blu-ray collection videos and Blu-ray collection update videos going forward. To all my regular viewers out there, thank you once again for joining me. To absolutely everybody out there, I hope I'll see you again soon. Until next time though, guys, take care and I hope you have a magical day.